This afternoon I'm talking to John Lyth and Amy Beaman from ES Broadcast. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got into esports? What was that journey?
It came from one of our traditional partners that had moved into esports more in advance of a lot of others, and we're at NAB 2018, and we were asked to get involved with delivering an installation for a studio build in LA. That turned out to be the OGN PUBG North America League studio facility for the Korean broadcaster OGN. So we went from there. It was a learning curve. We applied the skills that we have in terms of constructing equipment into a technical environment. But along that journey, we had to learn and adapt to the differences between traditional and esports as different environments and the way things are done, and changing some of the technology that we're used to working with to be more adapted into esports. That was a really good introduction. It was a little bit of a learning curve in places. But then what we gained from that is we'd always gone into, certainly on the services side of ES Broadcast, wanting to look at other sectors that we might be able to turn our skills to. Esports is obviously very interesting. So we decided during that project, so late 2018, that we wanted to put a lot of investment and effort into understanding esports. We didn't want to be the people that appeared and just said, this is how TV's done. We wanted to say, how do you want to do TV? So that we can adapt and offer our skills up. So that led us into creating a structured plan for 2019 on how to tackle esports as an industry sector, and that led to us bringing Amy Beaman on board as our esports BDM. And we spent last year going through what should we know about esports, but Amy can tell you some more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Yeah, so can you give us a little bit of feel for what you've been up to?
Yes, so I started last year, February 2019, and from there we just had to hit the ground running and started attending trade shows. We hosted a 4K event, and we highlighted esports as well at the hospital club, and we had a really good turnout, showing what some of our capabilities were, what we can do with studios, and how we can make a production more professional. And then from there, we've partnered with ESI on several events. I attend a lot of ESI events. We've been to Esports Bar Cannes, Esports Bar Miami. We've been going around meeting the right people, working with tournament organizers, and that's what we've done for about the last year.
Okay, and can you give us an outline of some of the projects that you have been involved with?
Sure. John touched upon OGN. That was the big arena that was built in Manhattan Beach for their North American PUBG League. It was, I think to date still, it was the biggest installation for any esports installation, especially for a battle royale. Then we can't specifically say, but we've been working with some tournament organizers, and what we do for them, because several of them need to move from city to city, it's important for their equipment to be packaged up so that when they get to the venue, it can be popped up and ready to go almost as soon as it arrives.
So this year's obviously been a bit strange with everything that's been going on with the pandemic. How has that affected you, and what are you looking to be doing next year?
Well, it has been a very interesting sort of 6-9 months. I mean, one of the big pushes has been obviously having to change the way that a lot of production is done. So we've spent a lot of time helping to thrash out new ideas, new ways of working. There's been a lot of new technology that was realistically not due for a formal launch until early 21, which has been brought forward almost by 12 months. So there's been quite a lot of making things fit in. How can we adapt them that are kind of a little pre-launch? So that's been interesting. So some new ways of working there. So what we're starting to see, though, is that, you know, obviously the big issue has been there's no crowds. That's had some impact in terms of how people have tackled things, keeping operators working from home. There's a lot of buzz around remote production, remote controlled productions. And it's been interesting to see where the production methods may change and might not actually revert back. I think there's been a lot of what can we do. I mean, obviously, this situation here alone is obviously a new way of tackling an interview of this type. And that does escalate, you know, that expands out into full sort of formal production as well. I think we're definitely going to see a change in skills and a change in how people truly sort of tackle what have been the industry norms for, you know, even 10, 15 years, to see if there is a new way of working. There's going to be an acceptance, I think, in terms of there are restrictions on some of the qualities that can be produced compared to sort of tier 1, tier 2 events. But I think everybody is after more content, and I think there's generally after a year of video calls, there's a little bit more acceptance on actually the content over some of the quality at times. I mean, don't get me wrong, people are doing a great job of manipulating technologies that weren't designed to handle broadcast into really good quality productions. But from a true broadcast engineering perspective, these are compromises that have been made. It's just they're becoming more acceptable. So I think that is going to change. It's going to change the marketplace. Certainly, if we don't see crowds coming back in any great volume, it's going to be much easier for smaller venues to be able to host what would have been traditionally larger events. They're just going to move their audience into a virtual environment. So I think that could be very interesting. Likewise, from a pure technical operator's point of view, we can see that people are wanting to send less staff. Their health and safety policies say they need to send less staff. More people need to work from home. So there is obviously a big impact that it's had, and I do think some of the compromises will stick as being an accepted norm, certainly in the middle market. So it is interesting to be able to look forward into 21, 22 and say, you know, what will we see that's different? Where do we need to adapt? What's the difference in the advice we need to be given?
And Amy, is there any advice you would be giving to venues that are looking to host esports events in the future?
You know, if you had asked me this question pre-pandemic, it would be very different from what I would answer now. Pre-pandemic, I would say, I think venues need to make it a more immersive environment for the fan, because sometimes the tournaments go on for a long time and you want to keep people interested. So maybe have some point of sale items there, have other content that the fans can engage with. Food and beverage is a big thing. Yeah. Now, post-pandemic, those things are obviously not as pertinent. So I don't know. I think it's going to be I think the next 12 months is going to be very interesting in general, and it'll certainly be interesting for esports and where it's moving forward.
Jonathan, you're kindly going to give a presentation at the Esports Venue Summit. Can you just tell us a little bit about what's going to be in that?
Yeah, it's obviously what we've been sort of doing some research on, both from, you know, we've got our internal experience with, you know, we've brought new staff members on as well alongside our move into esports, and I think so we've got some internal knowledge on this, but we're also keen to be able to leverage our working relationships, our partnerships with our client base, and say, look, basically what should we be asking for moving forward? What are the things that venues would be well positioned if they were to offer? What are some of the pitfalls that people are encountering, certainly as we move into these new ways of working? So yeah, the presentation is designed to sort of to bring together some of that knowledge that we've collected in recent months from internal and from client base, and put that forward into some quick bullet points and some indicators of, you know, what do the operators like to see when they get to a venue? Where do we think some of the models might need to change? Where are we going to be looking at more mid-market venues to be able to host tier 2 events rather than tier 3 events? I think that there's a lot of conversation around that. So the intention over the next few weeks prior to the presentation is to bring together something that is is useful for everybody involved with that transaction, to be able to say, right, well, these are the things that would actually be really neat. These would be the things that will put you in a good position to host X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And to give an indication of perhaps where the future's going, even outside of what we've suffered this year, but to be able to say, well, actually, things were already changing. Have you considered that this or this may be the thing to put into your build? Certainly around venues that perhaps are changing from offering to one industry sector to another, or that venues that are trying to attract a different range of events, obviously specifically around the different tiers of esports, so that hopefully we can offer a little bit of advice and set a few thoughts going.
Yeah, and just one final question, I guess. What are the key factors from a broadcasting perspective? That you would need in a venue? What is the big thing?
Yeah, so the 20-second version of what will be a 20-minute presentation basically is connectivity, power, and parking. But yeah, they're the it's about those fundamentals, but how they need to be understood by venues, and to really be able to engage with those that want to provide services from there. Looking forward to doing the presentation, and it's a shame it's not in person, but I think like I say, the virtual conferences are going to be the way forward for a little while. So yeah, we're just happy to be involved with that.
Brilliant. All right, John. Thank you. Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.
Cool.